You opened your phone the day everyone started talking about the crisis. You saw the same headlines, you felt the same fear, and you made the same decision millions of people made that week. Here is the strange part. If everyone was looking at the exact same information, why did some quietly get richer while everyone else spent years trying to recover? That is the part almost nobody ever asks. Because the answer is not smarter, it is not luckier. It is that a smaller group was simply looking at a different game. It was not a different crisis. It was a different way of seeing it. And once you see that variable, you will realize something uncomfortable. The crisis was not the trap. The way you learned to look at the crisis was. If you want videos that do not stop at the headlines, but reveal the hidden mechanisms behind them, subscribe now. That is exactly what this channel is built for. Think back to the last time something like this happened, not just one crisis. Any crisis, a market drop, a company collapse, a sudden shortage, you remember the feeling before you remember the facts. The tightness in your chest when the first alert came through, the way your thumb moved to check the news again and again. You were not checking for information, you were checking for permission to feel calm, and it never came. Because everyone around you was doing the same thing. Your coworker mentioned it at lunch. Your family group chat filled up with the same 3 articles. Your feed showed you the same warnings over and over. By the end of the week, you were not thinking about the crisis anymore. You were thinking about what everyone else was thinking about the crisis. That is a small shift, but it changes everything. Notice what actually happened there. The facts did not change hour by hour. Your feeling about the facts changed hour by hour. That gap is where almost everything important takes place. You were not reacting to the crisis itself. You were reacting to the reaction to the crisis, one screen away from the source. Ask yourself something simple. How many headlines did you actually read all the way through? During the last crisis you remember. Now ask how many times you felt the fear anyway, even without reading them. The fear did not need the details. It only needed the agreement. That is worth sitting with for a moment. This has happened before, more than once. Every few years, a new version shows up wearing a different name. A housing collapse, a pandemic, a currency scare, a tech crash. Different headline, same sequence, every time. First, confusion. Then, fear spreading faster than facts. Then, a wave of people making the exact same move at the exact same time. Selling when everyone sells. Freezing when everyone freezes. Waiting for someone else to move first. And every time a small number of people were doing something else entirely. Not louder, not more confident, just quieter. They were not arguing with the panic. They were simply not inside it. You can look back at almost any crisis in the last 100 years and find the same split. Most people moving together, guided by the loudest voice in the room. A smaller group moving on a different timeline, guided by something else. This is not a story about who is smart enough to predict the future. Nobody predicts a crisis. Not reliably. Not consistently. The split happens somewhere else. It happens in what each group was actually looking at while the crisis was unfolding. Most people were watching the crisis. The smaller group was watching the crowd watching the crisis. That single difference sounds too simple to matter, but it decided who moved early and who moved last. The ones who moved last were not careless people. They were people who trusted the manual everyone else was reading from. The manual said, wait until it feels safe. The problem is, it never feels safe at the exact moment it matters. By the time it feels safe again, the moment has already passed. Pause. Before we get into the second half, drop a comment right now. Have you ever watched a financial crisis unfold and only understood what actually happened months later? Tell me below. I read every single one. Here is the mechanism, without the jargon. Your brain did not evolve to evaluate a headline on its own. It evolved to evaluate a headline by checking how everyone around you reacted to it. For most of human history, that was a good strategy. If the group ran, there was probably a reason to run. Agreement was survival. Disagreement was risk. So your brain built a shortcut. When enough people believe something at the same time, your brain treats that agreement as proof. Not proof that it is true. Proof that it is safe to believe. Those are two very different things, and your brain does not tell them apart. This is not a flaw. It is a very old setting. It was built for a world of small groups and immediate danger. It was never built for a world where millions of strangers can agree in seconds, but your nervous system does not know the difference between a village and a feed. It responds to agreement the same way, no matter where that agreement came from. This is why the fear during a crisis does not feel like your own fear. It feels heavier, faster, and harder to question because it is not just yours. It is borrowed from everyone around you all at once. And once enough people agree on what a crisis means, your critical thinking quietly steps aside. Not because you are careless, because agreement to your brain has always meant safety. The people who ended up ahead were not immune to this mechanism. They simply noticed it happening, sometimes without even naming it. They noticed that the headline and the reaction to the headline were two separate things. They kept watching the second one long after everyone else had stopped questioning it. While most people were asking, how bad is this going to get? A smaller group was asking a quieter question. What is everyone about to do next, now that they all believed the same thing? That single question changed where they were looking, not what they knew. Where they were looking. This is the part that never shows up in the retelling. The story people tell afterward is always about the crisis itself, the crash, the headline, the moment everything felt uncertain. Nobody tells the story about the manual, the invisible set of instructions that told you exactly how to feel and when. You never chose that manual. You inherited it from the news, from your feed, from every conversation happening around you at the same time. And the manual was not built to protect you. It was built to spread as fast as possible because fear spreads faster than facts. The cost of this is not measured in dollars. You will not find it on a spreadsheet or a bank statement. The cost is every decision you made because everyone else was making it too. The cost is never asking, in the middle of the panic, where this feeling actually came from. You assume the fear was yours. You assume the certainty everyone shared was earned. Most of the time, it was just loud. And loud is not the same thing as true. Think about how many decisions in your own life were made this way. Not just during a crisis. During ordinary weeks, a purchase you made because everyone seemed to be making it. A fear you carried because everyone around you carried it too. A plan you dropped because the group had already moved on to something else. None of these felt like conformity while they were happening. They felt like judgment. They felt like common sense. That is the part that makes the pattern so hard to see from the inside. It never announces itself as agreement. It always announces itself as the obvious, reasonable thing to believe. There is one more layer to this, and it is the one most people never reach. The manual does not just tell you what to fear. It tells you when the danger is over, and that second signal is even less reliable than the first. By the time the group agrees the danger has passed, the opportunity tied to that danger has usually already passed with it. So the same mechanism costs you twice. Once on the way in, when it convinces you to panic alongside everyone else, and once on the way out, when it convinces you to wait for permission that comes too late. You are not being punished for lacking information. You are being delayed by a signal that was never built to be accurate. It was built to be shared. This does not mean the people who got ahead knew something secret. It means they paused for one extra moment before joining the reaction. That pause is small. It barely looks like anything from the outside, but it is the entire difference between reacting to the crisis and reacting to everyone else reacting to the crisis. You are not less capable than the people who got ahead. You were simply handed the same manual as everyone else, and nobody ever told you it was optional. Every time the next crisis comes, and it will come, the headline will feel urgent. The fear will feel like yours. The group around you will already be moving, and your brain will do exactly what it has always done. It will treat their agreement as proof. The crisis was not the trap. The way you learned to look at the crisis was.